Hi, to all of you joining online, thank you so much for continuing to stay with us. I'm Emily Ross from the United Nations Foundation, and I'm really honored right now to be joined by 4 parliamentarians from around the world. So I'm just going to start by introducing them. On my far side, I have the Honorable Senator Maleka Parker from Antigua and Barbuda. And then I have the Honorable Mr. Antonia Nikis, Minister of Parliament from Mozambique. Then we have the Honorable Ms. Stina Brix, Minister of Parliament from Denmark. And right next to me, I have the Honorable Mr. Tanveer Sakil Joy, Minister of Parliament from Bangladesh. So before we get into the substance of the issues and why you're here, I thought it would be really helpful, since you're all relatively young members of Parliament, to just give all of our youth delegates an idea of how you literally got here today, what kind of a career path that you followed into how you got into the government. And I'll start with you.
Me. I don't know how interesting my story would be, but basically I am the child of community activists, and so from a very early young age I was introduced to service and volunteerism and just having that inclination to do something basically on a community level. I eventually got involved in the trade union movement. And I think that is where I really found issues that I was extremely passionate about, and eventually I rose to the management structures of the union. I was on the executive, and I became the first female president of the largest union in my country. So basically, to young persons listening, I would say to get involved in something useful and productive in your country, and what I like to call active citizenship. Serve, and eventually the path that you follow will always lead to the top because you're logged on to something useful and productive. So let's try to do the small things first, and quite often people look to Parliament and say, I want to get there, without doing the groundwork and being fully invested in serving.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So you know that nowadays the majority of the population is constituted mostly by youth, and in the African context, particularly in my country, Mozambique, we are indeed the majority. So in Parliament, this is my second term now, we came up with a specialized committee on youth, which tackles most of the youth issues, and SRH is one of the most one which concerns to what we are really trying to push for. It's our commitment as parliamentarians. We do have the rule of oversight, but also the rule of pushing for whatever that matters the society as legislators and policymakers. So we are doing our best as part of this specific segment of people to push for the youth needs and try to figure out how we can come up with laws and public policies which can enhance all the issues concerning the sexual reproductive rights.
Thank you. And Stina?
Yes, I was elected last year for the first time, but like Maleka was saying, I've been a political activist for more than 10, 15 years. I started out working with students' politics. For example, we thought that we were too many students in one room to learn something, so that was like the main subject that I started out with, and we arranged a strike all over the country to put this agenda forward. And that's basically the way that I've been working with politics. A big issue in Denmark has been very strict immigration laws, and that's a subject that I've been engaged to as well, getting a more human and a more right-based approach to asylum seekers and migrants as well. But I'm lucky to be member of a party that's very engaged in putting young people in front. And we have this rule that you can only be elected for 7-10 years, so it gives a room for the young parliamentarians who wants to put forward a political agenda to become a member of parliament, and I was lucky to be that.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. And Joy?
Thanks, Emily. I actually come from a political family. My grandfather and my father was involved in politics. So, from very early childhood, I was like, in a political environment, and I was involved in student politics during my high school and college time. Uh, uh, but I was not planning to join politics, like formal politics, or become member of parliament so early. But for different change political scenarios in my country, I had to participate in the election of 2008, and this is my first time in parliament, and I am the second youngest member of parliament in my country now. And I belong to Bangladesh Awami League, which is the largest party in Bangladesh and which is now the ruling party. And for the first time in Bangladesh history, a political party has based its election and political manifesto around the youth segment. Our top priority this time, before the election and right through this period, has been building the development activities around the youth. So that's one thing that I am very proud of my party and my activities there.
I think it's really exciting, and I hope it is for the delegates, to see how governments really are prioritizing youth, as evidenced through the work it sounds like that you're all doing within your governments. And I'm curious, as you've been here, how have you been engaging in the forum? Have you mostly been listening, or have you been engaging and speaking with the delegates? I'm just kind of curious for your impressions of the forum for those people who haven't been able to join here in Bali.
Well,
Like, I'll have you start.
as you know, the most of the discussion takes place in the cafe sessions.
Yes.
And if you're asking if I have been involved there, most certainly.
Great.
And most definitely, I think the world knows that politicians are inherently opinionated. And so I don't think that any of us would miss an opportunity to share our opinions. And so certainly the cafe sessions have been very intense, very intriguing, informative, and you get as well to apply some common sense applications to a room full of largely NGOs and persons who mean well. And I am glad as a young person that you can bring some policy perspective. And so we can use that experience that we have gained being on the inside in helping to even shape the language and to speak to the policymakers in a way that they would best understand. Because it's one thing to feel passionately about something and know that we want it changed, but we have to be mindful that it has to go through a process, and there's a parliamentary process, and we have to bring people along. So, I've taken the opportunity to share my ideas, my opinions, my experiences in the cafe sessions. And at lunch and at break when you meet other delegates, and the conversations, of course, have all been very meaningful. It's been my experience.
No, that's great, and it's really nice to hear. It's almost like you're here in a way as mentors to the delegates and explaining that there is a process, and it's really that's really great to hear. And can I ask you just a follow-up question that I'm interested in asking each of you? What do you think is the biggest problem facing youth in your country?
Let me say that I was very, very pleased that this forum had the foresight to include the aspect of decent work in this discussion. Now, I'm not just speaking as a former trade unionist and my passion for workers' rights and issues around decent work, but clearly we know that a lot of the challenges have been exacerbated because of the unemployment situation. We also know that young people and women are the greatest casualties of the economic downturn. That is a fact. And so I can sum it up by saying clearly that the challenge around youth unemployment is obviously the greatest issue in my country, but it has a fundamental impact on all of the other ancillary issues around the ICPD agenda, to include sex give me the correct term, it's reproductive health rights, clearly, which is now linked to health. In general, it has impact on HIV and AIDS. It has an impact, on everything. So the greatest issue in Antigua and Barbuda and the Caribbean is youth unemployment, but we do still struggle with the cultural and religious stereotypes and taboos around the issues of the ICPD agenda.
And Antonio, in Mozambique, are your citizens feeling some of the same issues that Maleka just mentioned, or are the struggles slightly different?
Yeah, I think the ICPD are cross-cutting issues, but I think the issue of HIV/AIDS, in my perspective, is one of the most important at this point of time, because if we don't come up with the concrete measures and actions to stop new infections, mainly affecting youth, I think we will have a generation out of control for the next coming time. So I'm really concerned about HIV/AIDS, but also it has been raised again in here, the issue of child mortality due to so many causes, and I'm really concerned about this point, and trying to figure out how we can come up with policies and also try to push for the financing of and putting in place systems whereby more women can have access to services and so forth, because at the end of the day, the problem is that for developing countries, you still have so many limitations in terms of access of services, and this is one of the key issues which I think we should come up with concrete solutions on that.
Thank you. Stina?
For Denmark?
Yeah.
I think actually I would say two different kind of challenges. First of all, the education system, we have free education, but actually even though we experience that more than 20% of the young people, they're not able to read when they leave the primary school. So the education system is not good enough, even though it's for free. We have to see how come that young people, especially from working class, are not able to read, probably to take further education when leaving the primary school. And that's a huge problem that we have to deal with. How come we produce this kind of class, I would say, they're not able to go further. That's one thing I would say. The other thing is that even though it's part of the curriculum that you should learn about sexual education, you should have sexual education, it's not happening everywhere. And I think that's one part that I'm taking with me from this forum, that the young people of today really wants the right to comprehensive sexual education. And I think the point that has been made very clear also today is that the theme about sexual rights is very important also in the global north. We have many young people who find it very difficult to say no to sex if they don't want to, that suffer from the perfect body image and so on. So I think we have a lot to do.
Thank you. And Joy in Bangladesh.
Yeah, in Bangladesh, especially the situation relating SRHR was really tricky, I would say. Even 5 years ago, it was something that was not discussed about, that was not included in the health planning or anything. It was like something that people just didn't want to talk about, because we as a predominantly Muslim country and religious groups are quite strong socially and politically, and so there were some conservatism regarding this issue. But actually the situation has changed dramatically, I would say, in last 5-6 years. Because nowadays almost over 60% of the population are under 35 years of age in Bangladesh.
Oh, wow.
So the demography is changing quite rapidly, and that has an impact on society, on everything. And we have actually, I would say, reinvented the health structure and health planning in Bangladesh, and now SRHR is a very important part of our health planning. and health laws and everything. In this parliament, we enacted the new health law where special emphasis has been given on SRHR, and in major hospitals in Bangladesh now there is a dedicated corner for SRHR.
Wow.
So there has been progress made, but still we think the youth population thing we have a long way to go. Because there has not been much progress regarding the comprehensive sexual education. That's still being discussed, and we are trying to include all the stakeholders, religious leaders, social leaders, politicians and youth leaders, so that we have a consensus on issues like comprehensive sexual education, rights like health rights to marginalized peoples, or you know, who are we were vulnerable. You know. So I think the challenges are there, but one good thing is with the help of this young population, we are advancing.
Well, it's exciting to see that progress really can be made, even in a period of a few short years. The last question I wanted to ask you is, so we know that these consultations on the ICPD plus 20 review are going to feed into the development of what comes next after the UN Millennium Development Goals. When you leave Bali and go back to your countries, what's maybe the one piece of content from here that you might have learned that you think is going to be really important for the next set of development goals? Obviously, there's a lot of issues that are being discussed here in health and education and work and sexuality and everything, but if there's one thing you mentioned, the need for a comprehensive sexual education, is there anything that you're going to take back as something you really need to prioritize in your government moving forward pertaining to youth?
I think because for myself, I think we had a session on comprehensive education yesterday. I think that's for me is the most important part that I thought I got enriched, and I'm gonna take it back to my country, because I think it encompasses everything, you know. Because if we can give quality education to our young population, and that will make them, you know, more healthy every way, you know, because that will make them conscious about their rights, about their health, about their, you know, status, how to, you know, access different facilities, and at the same time that will make them stronger citizen. Actually they will carry this movement, movement of ICPD issues forward. So I think for that education is a must, and not only education, quality education.
And Stina, are you going to stick with the comprehensive health education as something you're really going to go back with?
Yes, I think that's very relevant, but I also think that we as young parliamentarians have like an obligation to put forward the points from this forum, and I think it has been made very clear that the young people here are really interested in putting forward the subject of sexual health rights and health. What do you say? And I think I hope so that it will be our generation that put forward and make a breakthrough in this area and put it on the global agenda. So hopefully we can do that if we work together.
Oh, thank you. Antonio?
Yeah, I think one of the key important issue after this forum is training to engage our parliamentarians to get more and very comprehensive understanding on what are the key and strategic areas. And I think also it's very important to engage other parliamentarians, and we are trying to come up at the regional level with a sort of forum of young parliamentarians whereby we can share best practices and figure out what each country is doing and how can we, bring those different experiences in order to foster the ICPD agenda post 2015 and also link it with the issue of MDGs. Because I think if we come again to the issue of MDGs post 2015, we have to go beyond just coming with statistics on where the goals have been met, but to make sure that our action, our activities as parliamentarians in terms of oversight, in terms of coming up with policies and public policies in terms of budgeting that can prioritize areas whereby it's much crucial and important to achieve those goals which have been left behind.
Thank you. And Malika, I'll give you the last word here.
The Caribbean region is one of the smallest regions in the world in terms of population size. And so it may be very surprising to the viewers and the listeners to know that we are second in the world in terms of HIV prevalence. Second only to sub-Saharan Africa. Wow. We wear that badge of dishonor. And that is because a lot of issues around SRHR in my region are still not dealt with frontally. And as was mentioned, those issues of sexual reproductive health and rights has featured prominently in this forum. So I know that it is a concern that is shared by young people all over the world. What I am very pleased about, that I do intend to take back to my country, is that UNFPA and the organizers of this forum has seen it fit to tie sexual and reproductive health rights issue to a health agenda. And I think that is new because in the past it has always been dealt with on its own, and it has made it a very controversial theme to deal with, the way different people look at it, because it's just standing out there on its own. But certainly linking it to the health of young people and to the health of a nation brings a different set of perspective, and it can open a lot of useful doors in starting the dialogue and moving things along. And that is what I think is missing in my country. And I think a difference can be made if we can bring the various sectors of society together around a health issue, apart from, you know, dealing with it from a cultural issue or a religious issue, and all of those things. So certainly that perspective is what I do intend to take back to Antigua.
Well, I really sincerely thank you for taking this time. It's been an honor to sit down with you, and I know you're anxious to go to the World Cafe and hear what everyone is saying. So I just want to thank you again, and we look forward to welcoming everyone back soon when we resume in 2 hours. So thank you. Thank you guys so much. Really appreciate it.